Welcome to Rewriting My Story, the podcast where healing meets growth and every chapter becomes an opportunity to rise stronger than before. I'm your host, and each week we dive into real motivations about resilience, self discovery, faith, purpose, and the journey of becoming the best version of ourselves. Whether you're overcoming setbacks, learning to love yourself again, or stepping into a brand new season, this space is here to remind you that your story is still being written and you hold the pen. So take a deep breath, lean in, and let's keep writing our stories together. The mirror you avoid is the one that changes everything. There comes a point in everybody's life where motivation stops working. Not because you're lazy, not because you're weak, not because you don't want better, but because deep down you know the problem isn't outside of you anymore. And that's the moment most people run. They run into distractions, they run into relationships, they run into entertainment, they run into blaming their past, blaming people, blaming timing, blaming luck. Anything to avoid standing alone long enough to face the one thing that can actually change their life: the mirror. And I'm not talking about the mirror in your bathroom or the mirror in your bedroom. I'm talking about the uncomfortable reflection of who you've become, the habits you defend, the excuses you repeat, the patterns you normalize, the potential you keep postponing. See, growth starts the moment you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what in me keeps creating this? That question changes everything. Because elevation is not built on ego, it's built on awareness. Most people say they want to grow, but very few people actually want to see themselves clearly. They want confidence without accountability, healing without honesty, success without sacrifice, transformation without discomfort. But life doesn't work like that. You cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot evolve while protecting the very behaviors that are destroying your future. At some point, you have to sit down with yourself and tell the truth. Not the polished version, not the version you post online, not the version you use around friends, the real version. The version that knows you've been procrastinating, the version that knows you've been settling, the version that knows you've been shrinking yourself out of fear. That's the mirror. And many times the mirror is very, very brutal because it doesn't care about intentions, it reflects actions. You can say you want peace, but the mirror sees chaos in your routines. You can say you want discipline, but the mirror sees inconsistency. You can say you want greatness, but the mirror sees comfort controlling your decisions. And that hurts. But pain isn't always punishment. Sometimes pain is revelation. Sometimes the discomfort you feel when facing yourself is actually the birth of your next level. Because here's the truth nobody talks about: your life changes the moment self awareness becomes stronger than self protection. Read that again in your spirit. Your life changes the moment self awareness becomes stronger than self protection. Your life changed when you stop defending the version of yourself that's holding you back. See, people love the idea of elevation. They love the aesthetics of growth, the quotes, the gym selfies, the new me, new year captions. But real revelation and real elevation, that's ugly before it becomes beautiful. It looks like accountability. It looks like lonely nights. It looks like breaking addictions nobody even know about. It looks like admitting you were wrong. It looks like grieving old versions of yourself. It looks like outgrowing environments you once begged to belong in. Growth is not glamorous in the beginning. It is a true game of tug and war. A war between who you've been and who you're called to become. And the hardest part, nobody can fight that war for you. Your friends can encourage you. Your family can support you. Mentors can guide you. But eventually, you have to lock eyes with yourself and decide, am I going to keep lying to me? That's the battle. Because the mirror exposes pattern. Maybe your anger isn't strength. Maybe it's unresolved pain. Maybe your isolation isn't independence. Maybe it's fear of vulnerability. Maybe your constant busyness isn't ambition. Maybe it's avoidance. See, we dress dysfunction up in pretty words to avoid confronting it. But elevation requires language honesty. You have to call things what they are. Avoidance is avoidance. Jealousy is jealousy. Laziness is laziness. Fear is fear. Not because you hate yourself, but because you finally respect yourself enough to stop pretending. That's where growth begins. And let me tell you something powerful. Self awareness is one of the rarest forms of maturity. Anybody can point fingers, anybody can criticize, anybody can explain why life is unfair. Oh, pity me. But it takes real strength to say, I'm the common denominator in some of my suffering. That sentence alone can change your future. Because once you stop seeing yourself as powerless, you regain the ability to transform. See, a lot of people are waiting for a breakthrough while ignoring the behaviors blocking it. You want peace? Look at your habits. You want confidence? Look at your self talk. You want success? Look at your discipline. You want better relationships? Look at the energy you bring into rooms. Everything external eventually traces back to something internal. That's why the mirror, your mirror, my mirror matters. The mirror reveals where the work actually is. And listen, this isn't about becoming perfect. Perfection is ego, growth is awareness. You are going to fail sometimes. You are going to regress sometimes. You're going to have moments where old habits come back knocking. That doesn't mean you're broken, it means you're human. But the difference between people who evolve and people who stay stuck is simple. One group stays conscious, the other stays comfortable. Comfort is where the danger is. Because comfort convinces you that good enough is acceptable where greatness is buried inside you. Comfort says, start tomorrow. Comfort says, you've got this. Comfort says, one more excuse won't hurt. And then years pass. Dreams die quietly, potential fades slowly, and people wake up one day wondering where life went. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack confrontation with themselves. See, the mirror doesn't just expose weakness, it also reveals power. That's the beautiful part. Because once you truly see yourself, you also start to see your resilience. You realize you survived things that should have destroyed you. You realize you've outgrown versions of yourself you thought were permanent. You realize you've been carrying strength you never gave yourself credit for. And suddenly, the mirror becomes less about shame and more about responsibility. Responsibility for your hearing, responsibility for your healing, responsibility for your future, responsibility for the energy you carry, and responsibility for the standards you accept. Because healing isn't just about recovering from pain, it's about refusing to become the pain. Some people go through heartbreak and become cold forever. Some people experience betrayal and become toxic forever. Some people face rejection and spend their entire life doubting themselves. But elevation says, the pain may have touched me, but it doesn't get to define me. That's power. Let me say that one more time for those in the back. The pain may have touched me, but it doesn't get to define me. Real power is waking up every day and choosing discipline over excuses, choosing reflection over denial, choosing purpose over distraction. That's power. A lot of people think confidence comes from validation. No, real confidence comes from integrity within yourself. It comes from knowing I said I change and I actually did. There is no stronger confidence than self trust. And self trust is built in private. Every time you keep your word to yourself, you rebuild your identity. Every workout, every prayer, every difficult conversation, every boundary, every moment you resist self sabotage. Brick by brick, you become someone stronger. That's elevation. Not overnight success, not motivational hype, not pretending to have it all together. Elevation is becoming more honest, more disciplined, more intentional, and more aligned over time. And yes, it will get lonely, it will get exhausting sometimes. But growth demands death, not physical death, ego death. The death of who you needed to be to survive certain seasons. Sometimes you outgrow coping mechanisms. Sometimes you outgrow environments. Sometimes you even outgrow people. And that hurts. But not everybody is meant to go where you're going. Read that slowly. Not everybody is meant to go where you're going. Not everybody is assigned to your next chapter. Some people only understand the version of you that stayed small. Some people only understand the version of you that they were able to control. Some people only understand the version of you that they were able to manipulate. Some people only understand the version of you that they were able to down talk and downplay to make themselves feel big. The moment you begin evolving, they get uncomfortable. The moment you begin evolving, they say that you are being difficult. The moment you begin evolving, they say that you have changed. The moment you begin evolving, they say that you're not the same and you're a different person in a negative tone because your growth reminds them of their stagnation. So they mock you, they question you, they doubt you, they badmouth you, they minimize your progress. But you cannot shrink to make others comfortable. If the old version of you kept you depressed, anxious, stagnated, undisciplined, disconnected, or unfulfilled, why keep protecting it? Why keep defending habits that are killing your potential? At some point, you have to decide. I'd rather be uncomfortable while growing than comfortable while dying inside. That's the shift. And listen carefully. The mirror is not your enemy. The mirror is your innovation. An innovation into deep awareness, deeper healing, deeper purpose, deeper discipline. Because the greatest project you will ever work on is you. Not your image, not your reputation, not your social media presence. You, your mind, your spirit, your character, your habits, and your integrity. That's the real work. And the beautiful thing about real growth is that it echoes into every area of your life. When you heal, your relationships change. When you gain discipline, your opportunities change. When you raise your standards, your environment changes. When you learn self respect, your boundaries change. Everything changes when you do. But transformation requires courage. Because the truth is, most people would rather distract themselves than discover themselves. Because discovery is uncomfortable. It forces you to ask yourself, who am I when nobody's watching? Who am I beneath the performance? Who am I without others' validation? Who am I without excuses? That's a terrifying set of questions for people addicted to appearances. But freedom lives on the other side of honesty. And once you start living honestly, you stop needing to pretend. You stop performing strength and actually become strong. You stop pretending to be disciplined and actually become disciplined. You stop chasing approval and start building purpose. That's real elevation. And no, the process never fully ends. There are levels to growth. Every new season introduces a new mirror. A mirror for your pride, a mirror for your patience, a mirror for your discipline, a mirror for your emotional maturity. Life will continuously reveal where work still needs to happen, not to destroy you, to refine you. Pressure reveals structure. And if something collapses under pressure, maybe it wasn't stable to begin with. That applies to relationships, mindsets, habits, and identities. Sometimes breakdowns are actually revelations. Sometimes losing what distracts you is the beginning of finding yourself. And maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe life have been forcing you inward lately. Maybe distractions stopped working. Maybe the noise got quiet. Maybe you've been feeling this uncomfortable tension in your spirit. That tension might not be depression, it might be awakening. Awakening to the fact that you can't keep abandoning yourself and expect fulfillment. You can't keep betraying your potential and expect peace. You can't keep asking life for change while refusing personal responsibility. The mirror is calling you higher, not into shame, but into alignment, into becoming who you were meant to be before fear convinced you to play small. So look closely. Look at your routines, look at your standards, look at your reactions, look at your excuses, look at your habits, look at your circle, look at your mindsets, look at your intention, and ask yourself honestly, is the person I am today aligned with the life I say I want? That question can change your entire future because awareness creates choice. And once you become aware, you can no longer unknow. That's where elevation begins. Not with motivation, not with hype, not with inspiration, with truth. The truth about what needs healing, the truth about what needs discipline, the truth about what needs to end, and the truth about what needs to begin. And once you accept that truth, everything changes. Because the mirror you avoid today might contain the person you've been destined to become tomorrow. Thank you for spending time with me today on Rewriting My Story. If this episode encouraged you, inspired you, or reminded you that healing is possible, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who may need it too. Remember, your past does not define you, your future is still unfolding, and you are worthy of every beautiful thing ahead. Until next time, keep healing, keep growing, and keep rewriting your story.